I made a brief mention in the last Cooking with Jack video that I did about how he was on his, fourth stroke now and was currently recovering in a nursing home. I was only planning on covering more of his videos once he eventually got better or bit the bullet, and it might be a little mean to say, but unfortunately he decided to pick the former, and he is up and posting again on his channel. But we're not here to take a look at any of the newer videos he's posted. No, while I was scrolling through my feed the other day, I stumbled upon a video of his I only recount watching once. I thought that it would be a pretty decent one to cover considering how it embodies the epitome of Jack's arrogance as a professional home chef. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the art of making a sandwich.
Well, guess what? We are heading towards the end of summertime, and a lot of you are starting to do your back to school shopping. So I'm going to do a back to school episode, and it's the art of making a sandwich. You'd be surprised. There's little tiny things you can do to make a sandwich better for your kids. Most of the time, you don't even know it. Your kids are probably tossing the sandwich.
I'm sure he just ran his words together there, but I'm pretty sure he just said that the kids are tossed in the sandwich. I know he meant to say the kids are tossing the sandwich like they're throwing it away. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, somehow we found out that Jack was putting children into his food, because he's committed so many other crimes against the culinary world as it is. Why not throw in a little cannibalism and homicide for good measure?
Okay, so here are some of the things that I have put on sandwiches before that you guys may or may not have used. Everybody knows mayonnaise and mustard.
What is that off-brand Hellmann's mayonnaise, Best Foods, that literally just looks like the Hellmann's logo? Okay, so upon doing some research, it appears that Best Foods and Hellmann's are the same brand, just with different names depending on which part of the country you live in. Why do we do that?
The regular old yellow mustard. And there's also the spicy deli mustard, which is really good. More of a New York style type of a sandwich. I prefer this mustard. If I'm going to use mustard, I want a little kick to it. Stuff like dressings, different dressings. You can use Thousand Island. You can use this Italian. That goes really well, but be very easy on it so you don't drench the bread. Even salsa. Depends on what type of a sandwich you're making. Put a little spoonful of salsa on there. Give it a little kick.
I'm sure that honestly, it's not a wild thing to do, but I've never personally put salsa on a sandwich. And I can't really think of any type of sandwich that salsa would complement. I'm sure there are sandwiches that salsa would be good on, even just a plain ham and cheese or something like that. It probably tastes fine. I can't think of any sandwich you couldn't just replace the salsa with a normal condiment and have it work better.
Okay, now everybody goes to the store and they get the deli meats. I'm going to give you another tip. With deli meat, always make sure they slice it. Do not buy the pre-sliced stuff that's been in the tray. Don't do it. It's all dried out. It's horrible.
I'm sorry to say, Jack, but that turkey already looks dried out and horrible. So if you had them slice that and serve that to you, you were already screwing yourself over from the start. Jack is going to be the kind of guy that insists that you must buy your meat from the deli counter. You have to have them slice it for you. You can't go and get any of the pre-packaged stuff. No Hilshire Farms, no pre-cut in the package and juices ready to be put on a sandwich. Not because of all the preservatives and things inside it, but just because he likes to emphasize his superiority in use of fresh ingredients, even though this turkey looks like it's been sitting out in the sun for 5 days.
Have them freshly and just tell them, I want it fresh cut. So, and if they don't, there's some tricks to getting it freshly cut. Tell them it's too thick, the stuff that's already cut, you want it thinner.
So you're making more work for the minimum wage retail workers that are working at your supermarket deli because you're so desperate to get fresh cut meat that you'll make excuses like, oh, the slices are too thick. At that point, just buy the meat and slice it at home yourself if you're that desperate for that perfect slice of meat that's not dried out because it's been sitting too long.
Now these were in the refrigerator. You're going to want to, before you start peeling them apart, if they're thin cut, just leave them out for a few minutes. Let them get to more like room temperature, and then they just come apart real easy.
I've tried to refrain from swearing a lot in the more recent commentary videos, but did this motherfucker just tell us to leave the meat out of the fridge so it can reach room temperature before consuming it? Jack is clearly not ServSafe certified. Jack isn't even a food inspector's worst nightmare. Jack is a coma nightmare. Something that's constantly torturing them for what feels like months or years as he bombards them with all these violations of food safety until one day they finally snap and wake up. Oh, thank God. None of it was real. And then they open up YouTube.com. And they see him on the front page.
The cheese can get really weird. If it gets too warm, it's all nasty and sticky. If it's too cold, it breaks, it's brittle.
If your cheese is too warm, it's nasty and sticky. I'm using air quotes a lot this episode. It gets nasty and sticky because it's going bad because you left it at room temperature.
Not all bread is alike. This is your generic wheat bread. This is the bread that I can't eat. That right there. I have to go more with a grainy bread. A whole grain bread. This bread just turns into sugar and kills me. It's just a bunch of carbs. It's pretty generic. It doesn't really even have any flavor.
Bread probably used to have flavor when you were a kid because that was before you abused the living hell out of your taste buds, my friend. Despite me loathing it, wheat bread still tastes just the same as it always has. Bread doesn't just lose its taste. You've just been conditioning your taste buds to take constant 24/7 abuse from the things that you decide to ingest. And so when it has normal food, it can't even process the fact that there's a flavor there.
Here's my favorite tip of the day. My son loves Olive Garden dressing. Sometimes I'll make a tomato sandwich with salami or provolone and all that.
So you make a salami sandwich with tomatoes on it. I don't refer to my ham and cheese sandwiches as a lettuce sandwich with ham on it. No, it's a ham sandwich.
And then I'll drizzle a little bit of this on there. But if I'm sending him to school, I don't want it on the bread right away. So I have one of these containers. Glad makes them. You can get them a bunch at a time. And I pour the dressing in here. And I just let him take it to school.
Jack thinks that putting food in another container to take somewhere else is a revolutionary idea, and he's the genius that came up with it.
So he goes to school, he opens his sandwich, all the meat's in there, all the cheese in there, and then he just drizzles the dressing on top. It tastes like I was there making it for him right there at school.
What exactly did you make, Jack? You threw all these ingredients on slices of bread. You didn't make the cheese. You didn't make the dressing. You just threw all that shit together. Yeah, technically that's making a sandwich, but you make it sound like you've been slaving over a hot stove preparing this meal for your son, and you found some magical way to transport it to school and still retain the flavors if it was fresh out of the pan.
Okay, the worst thing about making sandwiches for kids is putting the stuff on the bread. And there's a process. You don't put mayonnaise on the bread or mustard on the bread. You first use your barrier. That's where lettuce comes in. You put your lettuce down first, okay? Then what you do is you place your mayonnaise, mustard, or dressing or whatever on the lettuce. That will protect it. It'll barrier it from the bread so the bread stays together and isn't soggy by the time the kids eat it.
I can guarantee you that your kids don't care if their bread is a little soggy or not. If they do, that's fine. Kids can be picky eaters. I'm sure the generality of kids out there do not care. I honestly don't know many kids that like mustard or mayo on their sandwich to begin with, so you should consider yourself lucky that you have a son that even enjoys condiments on their sandwich and isn't just saying, hey, make me a PB&J, because that's what I'll eat, and I'm not going to eat that other trash. And he's actually okay with you going out of the way to make this more elaborate, all things considered, sandwich for him. Most kids would not give a crap. And I wouldn't be bringing that up if this was just him, showing us how to make a sandwich, as the title of the video might imply, but he's clearly themed the video around the back to school making sandwiches for your kids' lunch, so this is an instructional video on how to make sandwiches for children, not necessarily how to make sandwiches for adults, unless stated otherwise.
The other tip, I find it easier to go into a mayonnaise jar with a spoon and place it on top of the lettuce like that. I don't know why the butter knives that people use takes forever.
That is one thing that I will agree with Jack on. Butter knives are good for spreading things like butter, peanut butter, more viscous condiments that stick to the knife. But when it's something that's a little looser, it helps to have that wider surface to hold onto it and scoop it out. But we can all safely guess that the reason Jack uses a spoon is so he can glob as much mayonnaise as possible onto the sandwich.
Another thing kids like, I don't know why, they don't like flat sandwiches, okay? So don't make flat sandwiches. You always bunch things up. Things should hang over the edge. They should be bunched up. You don't want any uniformity to it. And you're just going to place it on like that.
I've never met a kid that doesn't like uniform sandwiches. I'm the kind of eater that always wants to save the best bite for last. And if I all of a sudden took a bite with the most meat and cheese ratio in it, I would be upset. And while not all children are like this, I know children tend to like uniformity and consistency in their food. They want to just eat a sandwich that is the same all throughout. It can throw them off. Quite honestly, going into this video, I was not expecting to use my child's psych education experience at all, yet here we are.
And the ironic thing is my son is in the other room waiting for this video to be done so he can have lunch. Cracks me up.
How is that irony? Whatever.
Take a slice, just pinch the middle, and just set it on like that. Beautiful. Very deli style. Hey, Jack, you want turkey also?
Whatever you want.
Nice.
See, that's what I'm talking about. The kids don't care. Whatever you want to top it with. Kids are very picky and laissez-faire at the same time a lot when it comes to their food.
Here's another great addition to a sandwich. That's right, balsamic vinaigrette. Drizzle just a little bit on top.
I apologize for more anecdotal evidence, but I have never met a kid that's not like 15 below that would enjoy balsamic vinaigrette. Yes, there are outliers and exceptions, but for the most part, that is a very strong taste for children. And if you're a kid with a very, very simple palate that is expecting uncomplicated flavors, getting a bite of a sandwich and being met with balsamic vinaigrette could throw your entire meal out of whack.
This is one of our family secrets. I don't think I know anybody who uses balsamic on a sandwich.
You ever think there's a reason for that, Jack?
And the last tip is some seasoning. Any kind of seasoning. Don't be afraid.
You know Jack is white when for seasoning he pulls out the salt and pepper. Oh. I'm sorry.
Nobody thinks of seasoning a sandwich.
I can guarantee you, Jack, that most adults think about putting salt and pepper on their sandwiches, but they do not consider it seasoning unless they are white bread like you.
And when you're cutting it, cut it a little different. Be creative. Kids like things different.
Diagonal cut is the superior cut, and you know I'm right on this. But food arrogance aside, at the risk of sounding like Jack, going back to what he said at the beginning of the video about kids throwing out their sandwiches that parents make in their lunchbox, I wonder if he was talking, in reference to other parents' kids throwing out their sandwiches, or if he has experienced that from Jack Jr. If he's going through all this effort, and Jack Jr. is just throwing out his sandwiches, or possibly even just trading it for whatever Bosco sticks they're serving in the cafeteria that day that he actually wants to eat, I don't blame the kid. He wants his son to feel like he's being provided with unique foods. And that is admirable, but we all know Jack's not doing it out of love for his son. He's doing it out of being a pretentious prick that wants his son to gloat about how great his dad's sandwiches are. And hey, you should all go check out my dad's cooking show on YouTube, and you guys should tell your parents to buy my dad's best seasoning and sauces that you'll ever taste, because my dad is the greatest cook in the world. It's all out of ego. Back when this video was recorded, I can almost say for certain that there's no way Jack was making these kind of sandwiches for Jack Jr.'s lunch every day at school. He's not going out of his way every day to make this. He is doing this to show off how much he cares about his son, how much he cares about cooking, about how much he cares about what his son is putting into his body, and that unique food experience that none of the other kids will have. It's just ego, man. It's all about his satisfaction. And that is going to do it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a comment and subscribe. Let me know down below any other Jack videos that you want me to cover, or any other channels that you think I should talk about. And as always, thanks y'all for supporting and sticking around, and I hope to see y'all next time. See ya!